Machu Picchu, the lost city's untold story. Welcome. Today I am going to tell you a story that will change everything you thought you knew about one of the world's greatest mysteries. You might have heard about Machu Picchu before. Maybe you know it as the lost city of the Incas, a wonder of the world, or those stunning stone ruins high in the Peruvian mountains. But today, I am going to tell you the real story, the story that archaeologists argue about, the story that history tried to forget. Machu Picchu is not just ancient ruins, it is a love story, a political conspiracy, and a sacred refuge all in one. A city so mysterious that even after more than 100 years since its rediscovery, we still don't know all its secrets. This is the story of Pachacuti, the greatest emperor the Inca civilization ever knew, and the woman whose memory might have inspired the most spectacular mountain sanctuary ever built by human hands. After listening to this, you will be shocked to know how one ruler's vision, one forbidden love, and one empire's desperate fight for survival created something that still stands after 600 years. And this is not just a history lesson, this is a perfect story for your English listening practice. So sit back, relax, and let me take you on a journey back in time. A journey of ambition, mystery, devotion, and secrets carved in stone. Now let's begin. The young prince who would change everything. To understand Machu Picchu, we must go back in time to the year 1438. Imagine the Andes Mountains, towering peaks covered in mist, valleys carved by ancient rivers, and a small but growing empire called the Inca. The capital was Cusco, a city of stone temples, golden walls, and thousands of people who worshipped the sun god Inti. At this time, the Inca Empire was not yet the mighty civilization we know from history books. It was just one kingdom among many, constantly threatened by neighboring tribes. The emperor was Viracocha Inca, an old ruler who had grown weak and fearful. He had many sons, but his favorite was Inca Urco, a spoiled prince who spent his days drinking chicha, the corn beer of the Andes, instead of learning how to fight or rule. But there was another son, a son who was largely ignored, a son who was not supposed to become emperor. His name was Kusi Yupanqui, but history would later know him as Pachacuti, which means earth-shaker, or he who remakes the world. Pachacuti was different from his brothers. While they enjoyed luxury in the palace, he trained with warriors. While they learned poetry, he studied military strategy. While they were content with what the empire already had, he dreamed of something greater, something impossible. He was not particularly handsome. Ancient accounts describe him as serious, intense, with eyes that seemed to see beyond the present moment. He rarely smiled, he rarely joked, but when he spoke, even the oldest generals listened, because there was something in his voice, authority, vision, destiny. And then came the day that changed everything. In 1438, a massive army from the Chanca tribe descended upon Cusco. They were fierce warriors, known for taking the heads of their enemies as trophies. They outnumbered the Inca forces 3-1. When Emperor Viracocha Inca heard they were coming, he did something unthinkable. He abandoned Cusco. He fled to the mountains with his favorite son, Urco, leaving the city defenseless. The people panicked. The nobles prepared to surrender, the priests prayed to Inti for a miracle, and then Pachacuti stepped forward. He was only in his 20s, he had no official authority, but he stood in the central plaza of Cusco and made a speech that would echo through history. He said, "My father has abandoned us, but I will not. I am a son of the sun. The gods have shown me in a vision that we will win this battle. Follow me, and I will lead you to victory, or I will die trying." Something extraordinary happened. The people believed him. Warriors who were about to flee picked up their weapons, farmers joined the army, even women and children prepared to defend their city. The battle lasted for days. Pachacuti fought at the front lines, his presence inspiring courage in every soldier. And according to legend, something miraculous occurred. Ancient chroniclers wrote that during the fiercest moment of battle, the very stones of the battlefield transformed into warriors and fought alongside the Inca. Whether this was true or simply the dust and chaos of war creating illusions, we will never know. But what we do know is this: Pachacuti won. The Chanca army was crushed, their leader was captured, and when Emperor Viracocha Inca tried to return to Cusco claiming credit for the victory, Pachacuti refused to let him enter. He declared himself the new emperor. His father, humiliated, retreated into exile. His brother, Urco, bitter and angry, tried to raise an army against him, but was defeated and killed. Pachacuti had seized power, but more than that, he had proven something incredible. He had shown that he was chosen by the gods, and now he would reshape the world. The Woman in the Shadows. But every great emperor has a story that history doesn't fully tell, and for Pachacuti, that story involves a woman whose name appears only briefly in the chronicles, yet whose influence may have shaped one of the greatest architectural achievements in human history. Her name was Mama Anhuarque. She was Pachacuti's primary wife, his Koya, which means queen in the Quechua language. In Inca society, emperors could have many wives. It was a political necessity. Marriages sealed alliances. But Mama Anhuarque was different. She was not just a political arrangement. She was from a noble family in Cusco, known for their wisdom and connection to the ancient traditions. Historical accounts describe her as intelligent, deeply spiritual, and fiercely loyal to her husband. While other queens of the Inca Empire are barely mentioned in the chronicles, Mama Anahuarque's name appears repeatedly, suggesting she was not a background figure but an active participant in Pachacuti's reign. Some historians believe that Mama Anahuarque was Pachacuti's advisor on spiritual matters. The Inca worldview was not just about military conquest, it was about maintaining cosmic balance, honoring the earth goddess Pachamama, and ensuring the sun god Inti blessed their civilization. Mama Anahuarque understood these sacred responsibilities deeply. But there is another theory, one that is more controversial and more romantic. Some scholars suggest that before Mama Anahuarque there was another woman, a woman from Pachacuti's youth, a woman he could not marry because of political reasons, a woman who died young, perhaps in childbirth, perhaps from illness, perhaps from the chaos of the Chanca War. There is no definitive proof of this. The Inca did not have a written language as we understand it. Their history was kept through oral traditions and quipu, a system of knotted strings that recorded information. Many of these records were destroyed by Spanish conquistadors centuries later, so we are left with fragments, whispers, suggestions in the archaeological record. But what we do know is this: Pachacuti, the mighty emperor who would expand the Inca Empire to unimaginable size, who would build roads connecting thousands of miles of territory, who would create a civilization that rivaled Rome, had a deeply spiritual and emotional side. And at some point in his reign, he made a decision that defied all practical logic. He decided to build a city in the clouds, a city so remote, so difficult to access, so magnificently beautiful, that it could only have been built for a reason beyond mere military strategy, a city that would become Machu Picchu. The vision of an impossible city. After defeating the Chanca, Pachacuti transformed from a warrior into a builder. He completely redesigned Cusco, turning it from a provincial town into a capital worthy of an empire. He constructed the Temple of the Sun, with walls covered in gold plates that reflected sunlight throughout the day. He built fortresses, palaces, and aqueducts. But the empire was expanding. Pachacuti's armies conquered tribe after tribe, expanding Inca territory in every direction: north toward what is now Ecuador and Colombia, south toward Chile and Argentina, west to the Pacific coast, east into the Amazon jungle. The Inca Empire, called Tawantinsuyu in Quechua, meaning the Four Regions, was becoming the largest empire in pre-Columbian America. With this expansion came problems. Conquered peoples had to be integrated, rebellions had to be suppressed, resources had to be managed, and Pachacuti, despite his military genius, began to feel the weight of empire pressing down on him. According to oral traditions passed down through generations, Pachacuti began having dreams, vivid, powerful dreams, where he walked among the mountains and the gods spoke to him. In these dreams, he saw a sacred place, a place where the mountains touched the sky and the condors flew below you, a place where the sun rose directly over the peaks and illuminated ancient stones, a place of perfect harmony between human construction and natural beauty. He became obsessed with finding this place. He sent scouts into the most remote regions of the empire. He consulted with priests and shamans. He studied the movements of the sun and stars. And then, around 1450, approximately 12 years into his reign, he found it. High in the Andes, at an elevation of 7,970 feet, between two peaks called Huayna Picchu and Machu Picchu, there was a mountain ridge. Below it, the Urubamba River curved in a horseshoe shape, flowing through a valley so deep and green it seemed like a paradise hidden from the world. The mountains were shrouded in mist most mornings, rainbows appeared after the frequent rains, and from certain angles you could see the outline of a face in the mountain profile, as if Pachamama herself was sleeping in the stone. This was the place. This was where Pachacuti would build his masterpiece. But why? Why build a city so remote that reaching it required climbing stone steps carved into near vertical cliffs? Why create a settlement that could only house between 500 and 1,000 people when Cusco already had tens of thousands? Why invest so much effort, so many resources, so much stone carving for something that served no obvious military or economic purpose? This is the mystery that has puzzled archaeologists for a century. The secret purpose. When American explorer Hiram Bingham rediscovered Machu Picchu in 1911, he believed he had found Vilcabamba, the legendary lost city of the Incas, where the last Inca rulers fled from Spanish conquistadors. He was wrong. Vilcabamba was found later, deeper in the jungle. But Bingham's mistake revealed something more intriguing. If Machu Picchu wasn't a refuge from the Spanish, then what was it? Over the decades, archaeologists have proposed many theories. Theory 1, a royal estate. Some believe Machu Picchu was Pachacuti's private retreat, a mountain palace where the emperor could escape the pressures of ruling. The construction quality supports this. Every stone is perfectly cut. Every building aligns with astronomical events. This was not built for common people. Theory 2, a sacred site. Others argue Machu Picchu was primarily religious. The site has numerous temples, including the Temple of the Sun, which has a curved wall perfectly aligned with the June solstice. There's the Intihuatana stone, a carved rock pillar that served as an astronomical clock and solar calendar. Archaeological excavations found that many of the skeletons buried at the site were female, leading some to believe this was a sanctuary for the Virgins of the Sun, chosen women who dedicated their lives to religious service. Theory 3, an agricultural laboratory. The site has extensive terraces where the Inca cultivated different crops at different altitudes, possibly experimenting with agricultural techniques that could be implemented throughout the empire. But there is another theory, a theory that connects all these purposes together and explains why Pachacuti chose this specific location, this specific design, this specific level of care and beauty. Some historians believe Machu Picchu was built as a memorial, a sacred memorial to someone Pachacuti loved deeply. Perhaps his first love, who died young. Perhaps Mama Anaharque herself, though she outlived him. Perhaps even his mother, who supported him when his father abandoned him. In Inca culture, death was not the end. The dead were mummified and kept in temples, consulted in times of crisis, honored in annual ceremonies. The ancestors were always present, always watching, always part of daily life. Building a sacred city in the clouds, a place where the physical world met the realm of the gods, would be the ultimate tribute. This would explain why Machu Picchu feels different from other Inca sites, why it has an atmosphere of serenity rather than militarism, why every stone seems placed with love rather than efficiency, why Pachacuti himself is said to have spent long periods there, not conducting political business, but meditating, performing ceremonies, and contemplating the mountains. We may never know the complete truth. The Inca left no written records explaining Machu Picchu's purpose. The Spanish conquistadors never found it, so they never wrote about it. And by the time Hiram Bingham arrived in 1911, the site had been abandoned for over 400 years, its secrets lost to time. But what we do know is this: building Machu Picchu was an act of devotion, and it required a level of human effort, ingenuity, and determination that borders on the miraculous. The impossible construction. Let me tell you exactly how impossible building Machu Picchu actually was, because when you understand the challenges, you understand the obsession that must have driven Pachacuti. First, the location. The site sits on a ridge between two peaks, requiring all building materials to be carried up steep mountain paths. There were no wheels in Inca civilization, no horses or oxen to pull carts. Everything was carried on human backs by workers moving in relay teams up and down the mountain. Second, the stones. The buildings at Machu Picchu are constructed using a technique called ashlar masonry. Stones are cut so precisely that they fit together without mortar, so tightly that you cannot slide a knife blade between them. Some stones weigh more than 50 tons. How did they cut granite with such precision using only bronze tools and stone hammers? How did they transport these massive blocks up narrow mountain paths? How did they lift them into place? Archaeologists have proposed several methods. The Inca likely used a technique involving water and wooden wedges. They would carve a line in the stone, insert wooden wedges, then pour water over them. As the wood expanded, the stone would split along the desired line. They would then use stone hammers to shape each face, grinding and polishing until the surfaces were perfectly flat. To move heavy stones, they probably used log rollers, rope made from plant fibers, and sheer human strength. Hundreds of workers pulling together, moving each stone inch by inch. It was backbreaking, dangerous work. Many workers surely died in accidents, falling from cliffs or crushed by stones. Third, the engineering. Machu Picchu is not just beautiful, it is brilliantly designed to survive. The Andes experience heavy rainfall, earthquakes, and landslides. The Inca engineers created a sophisticated drainage system with hundreds of channels and fountains to prevent water damage. They built on a foundation of crushed rock that acts as drainage and earthquake protection. When earthquakes strike, the stones of Machu Picchu actually dance, moving slightly and then settling back into place. This is why the site has survived 600 years, while many modern buildings would have crumbled. Fourth, the agriculture. The terraces at Machu Picchu are masterpieces of agricultural engineering. Each terrace has multiple layers, large stones at the bottom for drainage, then smaller stones, then gravel, then topsoil. This prevents erosion and creates optimal growing conditions. The terraces could produce enough food to feed the entire population of Machu Picchu year-round. How long did all this take? Estimates range from 50 to 100 years of construction. Thousands of workers were involved: stone carvers, builders, priests overseeing the astronomical alignments, water engineers, agricultural experts, artists creating the decorative elements. But here's what makes it even more remarkable. All of this effort was done without any expectation of fame. Machu Picchu was not built to impress the world. It was built for a purpose that only Pachacuti and his inner circle fully understood. It was hidden in the mountains, accessible only to those who were invited. It was a secret, a sacred secret. And then came the tragedy that would eventually lead to its abandonment. The empire's golden age and its cost. While Machu Picchu was being constructed, Pachacuti continued expanding the Inca Empire. He was not just a conqueror, he was a visionary administrator who created systems that allowed the empire to function smoothly. He established the mita system, a form of mandatory public service where every able-bodied citizen contributed labor to state projects, building roads, constructing terraces, serving in the army, working in mines. It was demanding, but it was also how massive projects like Machu Picchu became possible. He created a highway system spanning over 25,000 miles, connecting every corner of the empire. These roads crossed deserts, climbed mountains, and spanned rivers with suspension bridges made of woven grass that had to be rebuilt every year. Along these roads, relay runners called chasquis carried messages across the empire in days rather than months. He implemented a redistribution system where the state stored food and goods in kolkas. During times of drought or disaster, these reserves were distributed to communities in need, preventing famine. He standardized the Quechua language, making it the official language of the empire while allowing conquered peoples to keep their local languages. This created unity while respecting diversity. The Inca Empire became one of the most organized and efficient civilizations in human history, and at the center of it all was Pachacuti, the emperor who had seized power through courage and maintained it through wisdom. But every empire has a cost. The mita system, while creating great works, was exhausting for the population. Conquered peoples often resented Inca rule, especially when their young people were forced to relocate to different parts of the empire to prevent rebellions. Human sacrifice, while less common than in some other pre-Columbian cultures, still occurred during important ceremonies. And Pachacuti himself was changing. Power, even when wielded wisely, transforms a person. The young warrior who fought in the streets of Cusco was now an aging emperor surrounded by luxury and ceremony. His hands, once calloused from holding a weapon, now gestured commands that sent armies across continents. He had accomplished everything he set out to do. He had saved Cusco, he had built an empire, he had created Machu Picchu. But like all mortal men, he could not escape time. Around 1471, after approximately 33 years of rule, Pachacuti made a decision. He would step down from power. This was unusual in Inca culture, where emperors typically ruled until death, but Pachacuti wanted to ensure a smooth succession and spend his final years in contemplation rather than politics. He named his son Tupac Yupanqui as his successor. Tupac was a proven military commander who had led successful campaigns in the north. The transition was peaceful, a testament to Pachacuti's organizational skills. But here's where the story takes an interesting turn. After abdicating, Pachacuti did not stay in Cusco. According to some chroniclers, he retreated to his private estates, and many historians believe one of those estates was Machu Picchu. Imagine the scene. The old emperor, now in his 70s, climbing the stone steps to the city in the clouds one last time. His body weakened by age, but his mind still sharp. The morning mist parting to reveal the temples and terraces he had ordered built decades ago. the Urubamba River flowing far below, the peaks of Huayna Picchu and Machu Picchu standing guard like sentinels. This was his sanctuary. This was where he came to be close to the gods, to remember the visions that had guided him, perhaps to commune with the spirits of those he had loved and lost. In 1472, Pachacuti died. His body was mummified according to Inca tradition and brought back to Cusco, where it was kept in the Temple of the Sun. For years afterward, his mummy was brought out during important ceremonies, dressed in fine clothes, offered food and drink, consulted for advice. Even in death, Pachacuti remained a presence in the empire he had created. But what happened to Machu Picchu? This is where the mystery deepens even further. The mysterious abandonment. After Pachacuti's death, Machu Picchu continued to function for several decades. His son, Tupac Yupanqui, and grandson, Huayna Capac, likely visited the site for religious ceremonies and private retreats. Priests maintained the temples, farmers worked the terraces, the fountains continued to flow. But something changed in the early 1500s. Archaeological evidence suggests that Machu Picchu was deliberately abandoned sometime between 1530 and 1540, just as Spanish conquistadors were beginning their invasion of the Inca Empire. Why would the inhabitants leave? There are several theories. Theory 1. Civil War. When Emperor Huayna Capac died in 1527, possibly from smallpox introduced by Europeans even before they physically arrived in Inca territory, his empire was plunged into a devastating civil war. His two sons, Huáscar and Atahualpa, fought for control. This war weakened the empire just as Francisco Pizarro and his conquistadors arrived. In the chaos, maintaining remote sites like Machu Picchu became impossible. The priests and inhabitants may have fled to Cusco or other safer locations. Theory 2. Disease. European diseases ravaged indigenous populations even before direct contact with Europeans. Smallpox, measles, and other illnesses spread through trade routes, killing up to 90% of the native population in some regions. If disease struck Machu Picchu's small population, the survivors may have abandoned the site, believing it was cursed. Theory 3. Intentional concealment. Some historians believe the Inca deliberately abandoned and concealed Machu Picchu to prevent Spanish conquistadors from finding and desecrating it. The Spanish were systematically destroying Inca religious sites, melting down golden artifacts, and building Catholic churches on top of Inca temples. Machu Picchu was so sacred, so important, that it had to be protected at all costs. So the inhabitants left, taking or hiding the most valuable objects, and let the jungle slowly reclaim the city. Whatever the reason, Machu Picchu was abandoned. The stone buildings remained, but the people were gone. Vines grew over the walls, trees pushed up between the terraces, fog and rain slowly weathered the stones. For nearly 400 years, Machu Picchu sat hidden in the mountains, known only to a few local farmers who sometimes used the terraces for crops but left the main structures alone. The Spanish conquistadors never found it. They ransacked Cusco, destroying the Temple of the Sun and melting down its golden walls. They found and desecrated many Inca sites, but Machu Picchu remained hidden, protected by its remote location and the silence of those who knew about it. And then came the day that would change everything once again, the rediscovery that shocked the world. On July 24, 1911, an American historian named Hiram Bingham was searching for Vilcabamba, the legendary last refuge of the Inca. He was 35 years old, from a wealthy American family, educated at Yale University, and passionate about South American history. Bingham had been trekking through the Peruvian Andes with a small team, asking local people if they knew of any ruins. Most led him to minor sites that had already been documented. But then he met a farmer named Melchor Arteaga who mentioned some ruins on a mountain ridge above the Urubamba River. It was a difficult climb, steep paths, slippery rocks, dense vegetation, but Bingham was determined. When they reached the ridge and began cutting through the overgrowth, Bingham suddenly saw what had been hidden for centuries. Walls of white granite, perfectly fitted stones, terraces cascading down the mountain, and then, as more vegetation was cleared, entire buildings emerged: temples, palaces, fountains, a city of stone preserved as if its inhabitants had just walked away. Bingham was stunned. He wrote in his journal, "Would anyone believe what I have found?" He immediately understood this was something extraordinary. The quality of construction was superior to anything he had seen. The location was impossibly beautiful, and somehow this place had escaped Spanish destruction. Bingham spent the next several years excavating Machu Picchu. He documented every building, every terrace, every fountain. He photographed everything. He created detailed maps, and he took thousands of artifacts back to Yale University for study, including ceramics, stone tools, metal objects, and human remains. His work sparked international fascination. National Geographic published a full issue about Machu Picchu in 1913, introducing the site to the world. The photographs showed a mystical city emerging from the mist, stone structures that seemed to grow organically from the mountain itself, a place that looked like it belonged in a fantasy novel but was absolutely real. But Bingham made mistakes. He initially believed Machu Picchu was Vilcabamba, the last Inca stronghold. He was wrong. He also believed it was built by Viracocha Inca, predating Pachacuti. He was wrong about that too. And most controversially, he took thousands of artifacts out of Peru, beginning a dispute that continues to this day, with Peru demanding their return. Despite these controversies, Bingham's rediscovery was legitimate in one crucial sense. He brought Machu Picchu to global attention. He sparked the archaeological investigations that would eventually reveal the site's true age and purpose. He gave the world a reason to care about this incredible place. But even with over a century of research, Machu Picchu keeps its secrets. The mysteries that remain. Today, Machu Picchu is one of the most studied archaeological sites in the world. Hundreds of archaeologists, historians, and scientists have examined every stone, every terrace, every room, and yet fundamental questions remain unanswered. Mystery 1: the true purpose. We still don't know definitively why Pachacuti built Machu Picchu. Was it a royal estate, a religious sanctuary, a memorial, an agricultural experiment, a combination of all these things? Every new excavation reveals new details, but the overarching purpose remains debated. Mystery 2: the missing records. The Inca had no written language as we understand it. They used quipu, knotted strings that recorded numerical data and possibly narrative information. But the Spanish destroyed most quipu, and we have lost the ability to fully read the survivors. Somewhere in those lost records might be the detailed history of Machu Picchu's construction and purpose. Mystery 3: the astronomical alignments. Machu Picchu is filled with astronomical alignments. The Temple of the Sun perfectly frames the June solstice sunrise. The Intihuatana stone aligns with the December solstice. Windows in various buildings frame the rising and setting points of important stars. But what was the full astronomical calendar the Inca were tracking? What ceremonies were performed at these precise moments? We can observe the alignments, but we don't understand their complete ritual significance. Mystery 4: the construction techniques. Despite extensive study, archaeologists still debate exactly how the Inca cut and transported the massive stones. Some stones weigh over 50 tons and are fitted with such precision that modern engineers struggle to replicate the technique. Various experiments have been conducted, but the full methodology remains uncertain. Mystery 5: the hidden chambers. In recent years, ground-penetrating radar and other technologies have suggested there may be hidden chambers beneath Machu Picchu, possibly containing artifacts or even royal tombs. But excavation is prohibited because of the site's fragility and UNESCO World Heritage status. What secrets might still be buried beneath the stones? Mystery 6: the population. We don't know exactly how many people lived at Machu Picchu, who they were, or what their daily lives were like. Estimates range from 300 to 1,000 residents. Skeletal remains suggest a mix of people from different regions of the empire, but their specific roles and relationships remain mysterious. And then there is the biggest mystery of all, the emotional truth. What did Pachacuti feel when he stood at Machu Picchu and looked out at the mountains? What memories haunted him? What dreams drove him? What love or loss drove him to create something so beautiful in such an impossible location? We will never be able to interview him. We will never be able to read his thoughts. But perhaps that's appropriate. Some mysteries are meant to remain mysteries. Some questions are more powerful than any answer. The dark side of paradise. But while we celebrate Machu Picchu as a wonder of the world, we must also acknowledge the darker aspects of its history, both in ancient times and in the modern era. The labor cost. Building Machu Picchu required thousands of workers laboring for decades under the mita system. While this was accepted practice in Inca culture, it was still forced labor. Workers were separated from their families, required to perform back-breaking work in dangerous conditions, and had no choice in the matter. How many workers died in accidents while constructing Machu Picchu? We will never know, but the price of beauty was paid in human suffering. The conquests. The Inca Empire that built Machu Picchu was created through military conquest. Pachacuti's armies defeated and subjugated dozens of tribes and cultures. While the Inca were often less brutal than some other conquerors, allowing local customs to continue and redistributing resources, they still imposed their will through force. The empire was built on the destruction of other ways of life. The modern exploitation. Today, Machu Picchu faces new threats. Mass tourism brings over 1.5 million visitors per year, causing erosion and stress to the ancient structures. The nearby town of Aguascalientes, built to house tourists, suffers from inadequate infrastructure and environmental damage. Local Quechua communities, descendants of the Inca, often work as porters and service workers in the tourism industry, but receive little of the economic benefits. The artifact controversy. The artifacts that Hiram Bingham took to Yale University in 1911-1912 became the subject of a long legal battle. Peru fought for decades for these objects to be returned. Yale finally began returning artifacts in 2011, exactly 100 years after Bingham's discovery, but the dispute highlighted how archaeological treasures have historically been extracted from their home countries and displayed in Western museums. The climate threat. Climate change threatens Machu Picchu's future. Changing rainfall patterns affect the drainage systems. Landslides are becoming more common. Rising temperatures alter the ecosystem. Scientists warn that without careful management, the site could be severely damaged within decades. These darker truths don't erase Machu Picchu's beauty or significance, but they remind us that every great monument has a complex history. Every wonder of the world was built by real people with real struggles, and every archaeological site today exists in a modern context of tourism, politics, and environmental challenges. The continuing legacy. Despite all the challenges, mysteries, and controversies, Machu Picchu endures. It stands as a testament to human ambition, creativity, and devotion. When UNESCO designated Machu Picchu as a World Heritage Site in 1983, they wrote, "It stands 2,430 meters above sea level, in the middle of a tropical mountain forest, in an extraordinarily beautiful setting. It was probably the most amazing urban creation of the Inca Empire at its height. Its giant walls, terraces, and ramps seem as if they have been cut naturally in the continuous rock escarpments. The natural setting, on the eastern slopes of the Andes, encompasses the upper Amazon basin with its rich diversity of flora and fauna." But Machu Picchu is more than just an archaeological site. It has become a symbol of lost civilizations, a symbol of the indigenous peoples of the Americas, a symbol of humanity's ability to create beauty in harmony with nature, a symbol of mysteries that persist despite our modern technology and knowledge. Every year, millions of people make the pilgrimage to Machu Picchu. Some hike the Inca Trail, following ancient stone paths through mountain passes and cloud forests. Some take the train through the Sacred Valley. Some climb the steep steps from Aguas Calientes, but all of them share the same experience, that moment when they first see the city emerge from the morning mist. It's a moment that transcends words. The perfectly fitted stones, the terraces cascading down the mountain, the peaks of Huayna Picchu and Machu Picchu standing like guardians, the Urubamba River winding through the valley far below, the condors soaring on thermal currents, the play of light and shadow across the ruins as the sun moves through the sky. In that moment, people understand why Pachacuti built this place. Not for military purposes, not for economic reasons, but because some places are sacred, some places connect earth and sky, some places are so beautiful that they must be honored with human creativity and devotion. Visitors often report feeling emotional at Machu Picchu. Some cry, some laugh, some simply sit in silence, overwhelmed by the presence of something greater than themselves. Skeptics who expected to see just old rocks find themselves moved in ways they can't explain. This is Pachacuti's true legacy, not just the stones he ordered carved, not just the empire he built, but the feeling that persists 600 years after his death, the sense that humans are capable of creating something that transcends their individual lives, the proof that love, devotion, and vision can be carved into stone and preserved for centuries. The eternal question. So we return to the question that started this story. Why did Pachacuti build Machu Picchu? Perhaps it was for his wife, Mama Ana Huarque, a queen who stood beside him through war and peace. Perhaps it was for a lost love whose name has been erased by time. Perhaps it was for her mother, who believed in him when his father abandoned Cusco. Perhaps it was for himself, a place to escape the weight of empire and reconnect with the divine. Or perhaps it was all of these reasons and more. Perhaps Machu Picchu was Pachacuti's attempt to create a physical representation of the Inca worldview. Humans living in perfect harmony with nature, the earth and sky connected, the past and future unified in stone. The truth is, we may never know with certainty, and maybe that's exactly as it should be. Some of history's greatest creations are powerful precisely because they remain mysterious. They invite each generation to bring their own interpretations, their own emotions, their own understanding. What we can say with certainty is this: Machu Picchu was built with extraordinary care, dedication, and love. Every stone was chosen deliberately. Every alignment was calculated precisely. Every terrace was constructed to last for centuries. This was not a project done hastily or carelessly. This was a sacred act of creation. And 600 years later, it still stands. It survived the Spanish conquest by remaining hidden. It survived centuries of abandonment by being built so well that nature could not easily reclaim it. It survived the modern era by capturing the imagination of people worldwide who recognize its significance and fight to protect it. Pachacuti's final gift. In his final years, as Pachacuti contemplated his mortality, he must have thought about legacy. What would remain after he was gone? Empires rise and fall, armies are defeated, gold is melted down and reforged. Even the mummies of emperors eventually decay. But stone endures, mountains endure, and beauty, true beauty carved with devotion and purpose, can outlast empires. Pachacuti gave the world many things. He gave it an empire that stretched across 2,500 miles of South American territory. He gave it a road system that rivals anything built by the Romans. He gave it agricultural innovations that still feed millions today. He gave it a model of governance that balanced central authority with local autonomy. But his greatest gift was Machu Picchu, a city that serves no practical military or economic purpose, but exists purely as a testament to what humans can achieve when they are driven by something beyond mere survival or conquest. A place that reminds us that our ancestors were not primitive or simple, but sophisticated, spiritual, and capable of creating profound beauty. When you stand at Machu Picchu today and look out at the mountains, you are seeing almost exactly what Pachacuti saw 600 years ago. The stones have weathered slightly, some buildings have collapsed, but the essential experience remains unchanged. The sunrise still illuminates the Temple of the Sun in exactly the same way. The mist still rises from the valley at dawn. The condors still soar overhead. This continuity across centuries is rare. Most places change dramatically. Cities are rebuilt, landscapes are transformed, but Machu Picchu remains, frozen in time, a window into the Inca worldview. And in that sense, Pachacuti achieved immortality, not through having his mummy preserved in a temple, not through having his name recorded in chronicles, but through creating something so beautiful, so mysterious, so perfectly integrated with its natural setting that people 600 years in the future would travel from every corner of the world just to stand where he stood and see what he saw. The modern pilgrimage. Today, visiting Machu Picchu has become almost a spiritual pilgrimage for millions of people. Travelers save money for years to make the journey. They endure long flights, acclimatize to the high altitude, and wake up at 4 a.m. to catch the sunrise over the ruins. Why? What draws them? Some come for adventure, to check off a bucket list item, to capture the perfect Instagram photo. But most come for something deeper. They come seeking connection to history, connection to indigenous cultures, connection to the natural world, connection to something greater than their everyday lives. And Machu Picchu delivers. Even the most cynical visitors find themselves moved. There's something about standing on those ancient terraces, surrounded by mountains that have witnessed millions of sunrises, that puts human life into perspective. It reminds us that we are part of a long story, that humans have always sought meaning, created beauty, and reached for the divine. The Quechua people who live in the region still consider Machu Picchu sacred. They perform ceremonies there, making offerings to Pachamama, the earth goddess. They maintain the old traditions, speaking Quechua, wearing traditional clothing, and preserving the knowledge passed down through generations. For them, Machu Picchu is not just an archaeological site, it is a living connection to their ancestors. It is proof that their culture created something that commands the world's respect. It is a source of pride in an era when indigenous peoples worldwide have been marginalized and their contributions to human civilization often overlooked. The Peruvian government recognizes Machu Picchu's importance, not just as a tourist attraction, but as a symbol of national identity. The site appears on currency, in government logos, in schools. Children learn about Pachacuti and the Inca Empire with pride. The message is clear. Before the Spanish arrived, Peru was home to one of the world's great civilizations. This reclaiming of indigenous history is part of a larger global movement. For too long, the history of the Americas was told primarily through the lens of European colonization. Native civilizations were portrayed as primitive, their achievements downplayed or ignored. But sites like Machu Picchu force a different narrative. They prove that indigenous peoples created sophisticated societies, advanced technologies, and stunning works of art. Machu Picchu stands as a rebuke to anyone who believes civilization flows in only one direction, or that progress is linear. The Inca achieved things that even modern engineers struggle to replicate. They built sustainably, in harmony with nature, creating structures that have lasted centuries without reinforced concrete or steel. They understood astronomy, agriculture, and architecture at a level that commands respect from any expert. The future of the lost city. But what does the future hold for Machu Picchu? This is not a simple question. The site faces enormous challenges. Climate change threatens its structural integrity. Mass tourism causes erosion and degradation. Economic pressure pushes for more visitors, even as conservationists warn about overuse. Development around the site creates environmental problems, and the COVID-19 pandemic showed how economically dependent the region has become on tourism, creating a dangerous vulnerability. UNESCO has placed Machu Picchu on its watch list for endangered World Heritage sites, not because of imminent collapse, but because the threats are real and increasing. Without careful management, the site could be severely damaged within our lifetimes. Peru has implemented various protective measures. Visitor numbers are capped, though enforcement is inconsistent. Certain areas of the site are closed to prevent damage. Time limits restrict how long visitors can stay. The Inca Trail requires permits and has annual closures for maintenance. But is it enough? Many archaeologists and conservationists say no. They argue for more drastic measures, further reducing visitor numbers, limiting access to the most fragile areas, investing more in preservation technology, and finding alternative economic models that don't depend entirely on mass tourism. But others argue that restricting access is elitist. Machu Picchu belongs to all humanity, they say. People from every nation and economic background should have the opportunity to experience this wonder. Finding the balance between preservation and access is one of the great challenges of modern archaeology. Technology offers some solutions. Virtual reality experiences could allow millions to visit Machu Picchu without physically being there. Advanced scanning and 3D modeling create digital records that preserve every detail, ensuring that even if the physical site is eventually damaged, we will retain perfect documentation. Drones monitor for structural problems that ground-level inspections might miss. But technology cannot replace the actual experience of standing at Machu Picchu, feeling the mountain wind, seeing the play of light across ancient stones, sensing the presence of something sacred. That experience is irreplaceable, and it is threatened. The question facing our generation is this: will we be good stewards of what Pachacuti created? Will we protect Machu Picchu for future generations? Or will our desire to see it, photograph it, and profit from it ultimately destroy the very thing we claim to love? This is not just about Machu Picchu. This is about our relationship with history, with nature, with indigenous cultures, and with the legacy we leave for those who come after us. Every generation makes choices that echo across time. Pachacuti made the choice to build something beautiful and enduring. What choice will we make? The wisdom of stone. As we near the end of this story, it's worth reflecting on what Machu Picchu teaches us. First, it teaches us about the power of vision. Pachacuti saw something that others couldn't see. He imagined a city where none existed. He believed that beauty and spirituality mattered as much as military might and economic power. And he convinced thousands of people to share his vision and work toward making it real. That is leadership. That is the power of human imagination. Second, it teaches us about patience. Machu Picchu was not built in a day, a year, or even a decade. It took generations of sustained effort. The workers who carved the first stones never saw the finished city, but they did their work with care anyway, knowing they were part of something greater than themselves. In our age of instant gratification, this is a powerful lesson. Some things worth doing take time. Some legacies unfold across centuries. Third, it teaches us about harmony. The Inca didn't bulldoze the mountain to make construction easier. They adapted to the landscape, worked with it, incorporated natural features into their design. The result is architecture that feels like a natural extension of the mountain itself. This is wisdom we desperately need in our era of environmental crisis. We are not separate from nature. We are part of it. Fourth, it teaches us about mystery. Despite all our technology, all our research, all our scientific tools, we still cannot fully explain Machu Picchu. We don't know its complete purpose. We don't know all its construction techniques. We don't know the full story of the people who lived there. And that's okay. Mystery is not a problem to be solved. Mystery is part of what makes life meaningful. Not everything needs to be explained, quantified, and reduced to data points. Fifth, it teaches us about resilience. Machu Picchu has survived war, disease, abandonment, earthquakes, heavy rains, and the stress of millions of visitors. The stones remain. The terraces still hold. The vision endures. Human creativity, when combined with quality craftsmanship and deep purpose, can create things that outlast empires, religions, and even languages. The Inca Empire fell. The Quechua language nearly disappeared. The religious practices were suppressed. But Machu Picchu stands. And finally, it teaches us about love. Whether Pachacuti built Machu Picchu for a wife, a lost love, his mother, the gods, or simply for the love of beauty itself, the driving force was love. Not fear, not greed, not the desire for conquest or domination, but love. The kind of love that inspires great works. The kind of love that makes you want to create something that will outlive you. The kind of love that connects humans across centuries. This, ultimately, is why Machu Picchu matters. It is proof that love, in whatever form it takes, is the most powerful force in human history. Conclusion: the city that lives forever. So we come to the end of our journey through time, from the young prince Pachacuti defending Cusco in 1438 to the modern-day pilgrims climbing the mountain to witness sunrise over the ruins. We have walked through love and loss, construction and abandonment, mystery and rediscovery. The Taj Mahal is often called the greatest monument to love ever built, but Machu Picchu rivals it in every way. It is older, it required more labor, it is more perfectly integrated with its natural setting, and its purpose remains beautifully mysterious, allowing each person who visits to find their own meaning in the stones. When Pachacuti died in 1472, he could not have known that his creation would survive 600 years. He could not have imagined that people from countries whose existence he never dreamed of would one day make pilgrimages to stand where he stood. He could not have predicted that Machu Picchu would become a symbol of indigenous achievement, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and one of the new 7 wonders of the world. But perhaps in his final years, as he sat on the terraces of Machu Picchu and watched the sunset over the Andes Mountains, he understood something profound. He understood that some things transcend their creators. Some things become larger than their original purpose. Some things speak to something universal in the human spirit. Machu Picchu is not just an Inca achievement, it is a human achievement. It belongs to all of us. It reminds us of what we are capable of when we dare to dream, when we commit to excellence, when we work in harmony with nature, and when we create out of love rather than fear. The stones of Machu Picchu have witnessed countless sunrises. They have seen clouds roll through the valley. They have felt rain and sun, earthquake and peace. They have stood silent while empires rose and fell, while languages changed, while technology transformed the world beyond recognition. And they will continue to stand, long after we are gone, long after our problems seem quaint and distant. The stones will remain, weathered by time but fundamentally unchanged, waiting for the next generation of pilgrims, waiting to inspire the next dreamer, waiting to prove once again that human beings can create beauty that transcends death. This is the story of Machu Picchu, a story of vision and devotion, a story of mystery and majesty, a story that began with one man's determination to create something sacred in the mountains and continues with every person who makes the journey to see what he built. It is a love story, a tragedy, a triumph, a mystery, a masterpiece. It is the lost city that meets sky, where the past speaks to the present, where humans proved they could create something that approaches the eternal. It is Machu Picchu, and it will live forever.